So welcome everybody. It's good to see everyone here. It's Dr. Divi. Tonight we're going to be teaching about intuition. Now, as everyone knows who's joining me on the call live, I'm going to teach for anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, and then we'll do a question and answer at the end. But tonight's class is all about intuition. So I'm just going to start talking, and then like I said, at the end we'll take questions and answers, and you guys, if you want to type in the occasional thing into the chat box, feel free to. But I want to start first talk about what intuition is and what intuition is not. Intuition has all kinds of different definitions. So I'm going to pull up the definition from Wikipedia. So the definition from Wikipedia, one second while I pull it up. The definition from Wikipedia about intuition is the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. The ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. It's a thing that one knows or considers, likely from an instinctive feeling rather than a conscious reasoning. That's the definition of Wikipedia about intuition. Okay. And I'm going to jump in and out of like the science to the spiritual realm, back and forth, okay? They often say that intuition is your sixth sense. It's the sense that that's there, but we don't use very often. But it's a sense that we all have. So before we even start, I want you to all tell yourself, I am intuitive, because everyone's intuitive. If we're born and we're on the planet, we're all intuitive, okay? Everyone's intuitive, just straight up, okay? The only difference is mine is very mastered, and we'll get into that later on. Now, I want you to give you a heads up, and I'm just kind of like doing a bit of a preview. So one of the things that made me want to do this talk on intuition is I'm just in the final edit stages of the book I've been writing with Lynette Brown called You're Not Psychic, A Regular Person's Guide to Using and Understanding Intuition. So it's an incredible book, and it's going to come out in August, and I'll let y'all know when that comes out, or just follow me on social media, you'll see it there. But the book is all about intuition, and a lot of us struggle with intuition. And we're going to talk about why we struggle with it and all that stuff as we go. But a big section of the book that I wrote was about how there are a lot of scientific studies on intuition, a lot, okay? A lot. And they're all in the book. And it's actually, to me, it's the boring section of the book, to me, because I wrote it as a science heavy stuff, but there's a lot of studies out there. And what the studies across the board show is that when we're doing MRI studies or EKG or EEG, like different medical studies on people who are practicing their intuition, we actually see a change. So if you hook me up to monitors when I'm doing an intuitive reading, you'd actually see a change in blood flow than when I'm just thinking, okay? And that's been studied, and if you pick up the book, which you will, it's study after study after study after study of MRIs, EKGs, EEGs, and you cannot dismiss medical studies that continuously produce it, okay? Now, there's three main organs that we think are very much related to or responsible for intuition, okay? And the three main organs are the gut, stomach, the brain, and the heart, okay? And those three areas of our body have been studied for intuition. Isn't that exciting to know? And each of us have it. The thing that screws us up is our thinking mind, okay? So I want you to know before I keep going that each of you have had intuitive hits, each of you have intuitive senses, but remember that definition I just read to you. It's an instinctive feeling without conscious reasoning. So we get this hit or this intuition, then our conscious brain tries to rationalize it. Have any of you done that? Have any of you gone, okay, this is my sense, but maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. And then we try to run it through our brain and we try to figure it out. But the whole idea of intuition is that it's not supposed to be figured out through our conscious brain, but this is what we do as humans. And the reason we do that is because as children, we're profoundly intuitive. Like kids generally, until they're not taught to, listen to their stomachs when it comes to eating. I'm hungry, I'm not hungry. I want to play, I don't want to play. It's sleepy time, it's not sleepy time. Unless we train them not to listen to those cues. So children are automatically intuitive. And then the thinking mind kicks in. And then sometime around the teenage years is when we get very logical. Maybe I should do this, maybe I shouldn't. We get very rational. Maybe this is for me or not. Now the next theory on intuition, if you saw my post on Instagram today, the next theory with intuition, remember I said I'm going to jump between science and spiritual realm? The next theory on intuition is the divine I am that's in you, the non-physical part in you that's actually speaking to you through intuitive nudges. So your hits, your intuitive feelings are the divine speaking to you. How many of you have had an idea? And I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me. I have like an incredible idea. This is what I would love to produce on the planet. And it could just be actually a gadget. Like this gadget would be awesome. And the next thing I know, and I don't follow through with that, the next thing I know, that gadget's on TV. I'm like, damn, I had that idea. I know I'm not the only one that's happened to. Okay? So how intuition works is the divine sends you an idea. We'll talk about how it sends in a few minutes here, but you get this instinctive knowing and then you can dismiss it. If you dismiss it, that same divine knowing will go to somebody else or somebody else or somebody else. Okay? So if you've ever had an idea and you don't follow it, and then a month later you see it on TV, that's all it is. Now the hard part is we have these thinking minds and then we have the intuitive mind, and we're going to talk about them in a second. So let's talk about what intuition is. It's that sixth sense. It's the divine speaking to us. It's in our inner knowing. It's just like, yes. Let's talk about what intuition is not. Intuition is not imagination. You know, imagination is like sitting there and imagining, oh, my Prince Charming will come, right? That's not intuition. I'll go through that in a minute. Intuition is not positive thinking. Oh yeah, let me list of positive thoughts. That's not intuition. Intuition comes from outside and it comes to us. Okay? Imagination is us creating. Positive thinking is us creating. So it's a real difference. Now, where people get another mucked up is there's something called true guidance and false guidance. Okay? Some of us have had intuitive hits and we think sorry, let me say that differently. Some of us receive information and we're not sure if it's our mind or intuition, but we think it's our intuition, then we follow it. But let me tell you the difference. This has happened to me so many times too, just so you guys know. An intuitive and a true guidance is very loving, very repetitive, and very soft. It says, change your tires, change your tires, change your tires. We love you, change your tires. We love you, change your tires. False guidance is, you idiot, you're a dummy. What's wrong with you? Change your tires. There's a real difference in how it's sent to you. We moved here right before COVID, and like 2 weeks before COVID hit, I moved into this, we bought this condo, we moved in here. And so I was trying to get insurance, and I'd gone to the place and they shut down, you know, for those 2 months. So I couldn't get house insurance. And for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been getting the hit, get insurance. And it's very soft. It's not like, get insurance, you'll be broken up. It's not that. It's just soft and repetitive and loving. I'm not worried. I'm just like, okay, that's my intuition. Soft, repetitive. I'm not like, okay. Just soft, repetitive, loving. And so the hard part with intuition is that we have this very busy mind, very busy. And until you actually learn to separate your crazy thinking from quiet, you can't tell the difference. Does that make sense to you guys? So one of the biggest things people ask me all the time, I think it's probably the most common question I get, how do you raise your intuition? I'm going to give you guys 4 or 5 different ways, but I've told some of you guys a story. One of the people I studied with back about 15 years ago was a woman called Doreen Virtue, who you may or may not have heard of. She wrote a lot of the angel books back in the day. And so I went and spent how many ever $1,000 to get to Hawaii to take this course, to do this hotel, probably close to 5 or 10 grand. I get to Hawaii, didn't know anything about this woman. I'm one of these people who like, oh, this is cool book. That's who I am. I didn't know she had written a bunch of books. She's like, this looks cool, click. And next thing I know, $7,000 or $8,000 later, I'm sitting in Hawaii at this conference room, and she says, okay, y'all are here to learn intuition, right? We're like, yep. She's like, I can't help you. If you're not meditating, you're in the wrong place. She said, go upstairs and meditate right now. That's your intuition place. And I was like, I just spent $7,000. Thank God I had been meditating regularly prior to that point. Meditation is your key to intuition. Okay. I'm going to give you 4 things that increase intuition. This is actually in the book. Meditation, dark rooms. You guys heard of those, where you make everything dark? Shut the light. One of my clients did 7 days in a dark room a couple months ago, and he had somebody deliver food to him, like the whole 9 yards, shut all the light out, had a place to go to the bathroom in dark, like no joke. This dark room stuff is an interesting concept. So dark rooms, because what dark rooms do is they up your serotonin and melatonin. Serotonin and melatonin are the precursors to DMT, which is the hormone that goes up with intuition. that make sense to you guys? So dark room, meditation. With meditation, you automatically up DMT. DMT is the hormone that goes up with intuition. It goes up when you do ayahuasca, but meditation, intuition is the natural way. Breath work and yoga, specifically Kundalini yoga, are really great ways to increase your intuition. And the other one is I'm going to pronounce this wrong, binaural beats. I think I pronounced that right. Listening to binaural beats is a very good way. It's been well studied and documented to increase DMT production, increase intuition. Okay, so those are the 4 study ways to increase intuition. The biggest and best ways that I learned to increase intuition, for me, for Divi, so what happened for me was I was practicing yoga for probably about a decade at this point. I think by the time I got pregnant, maybe it was 7-8 years, I don't remember. I was pregnant and I kept getting, it was probably a year before I got pregnant, I kept getting the hit to start meditating. I didn't know it was a hit. Didn't know. Kept going, got to start meditating. But it wasn't like, you have to meditate, Divi. That there's a difference. You have to meditate for January resolution or start meditating. Do you see the difference? There's a big difference. So I was getting the hit, I didn't know it was called a hit, to meditate. And just like people get the hit to go green, or like do greens, or to drink less, which is different than the January resolution saying you have to. So I started meditating, and about a year after that is when I did the Doreen Virtue course. But I was already meditating and doing that things regularly, but when you slow down your mind, you actually have space. Does that make sense to you guys? And we have to be willing to slow down our minds to wake up our intuition. Okay, that's something you need to understand. Because when the mind is running, you can't tell the difference between your mind and intuition. I'll get there when I start talking about clairs in a few minutes here. But when your mind is thinking a lot, you can't tell the difference. So personally, the biggest thing that increased my intuition was taking an intuition course. So that was what I did about 15 years ago, is it just cranked it up. And I personally, when I took my intuition courses, I've taken more than one, it was just for me. I never thought I would do this professionally. It was just like, okay, that's just what I do though. I'm like, oh, sound healing looks cool. I'm gonna go study this. I do that kind of thing. And I really thought it was just for me. But what it actually did for me was it made me really realize that I already have intuition. I'm just not listening to it. Okay? So I'm gonna spend a few minutes now going into a little bit of an exercise for y'all to figure out what's called your primary clair. And let me just define that what it is. People always say, Claire, what are you talking about? Clair is C-L-A-I-R. That's how it's spelled, okay? Clair is the divine. Remember we said intuition is the divine speaking to us. Remember we said that already? Okay? But there's 4 primary clairs. And we're gonna go through an exercise in just a second here for y'all to figure out your primary clair, okay? So there's 4 primary clairs. There's more than 4, but we have access to all 4. But one is your main one. I'm gonna go through all 4 in a second. We'll go through an exercise in 1 second too. So there's 4 primary clairs, or 4 primary ways that the divine speaks to us. You have one that's your main one, but you have access to all 4, okay? The one most people think about the most is clairvoyance. We see it in movies all the time. Psychic visions, right? Clairvoyance is to see. Now we all have this. We all dream, right? We all have visions. Oh, that looks beautiful. Or I could see myself on stage, or I could see myself as an actor. It's just like, you know, visualization, that's vision. Now, when clairvoyance occurs, it just drops in, like we just see it. Now, to get clairvoyance up, you have to open this chakra right here, your 6th chakra. Now, to open your 6th chakra, you have to have your 5th and your 4th open. To get above your 4th is to get above your heart, which we'll talk about in just a second. But most people live in the lower chakras. Got it? So you you want to start meditating or slowing down the mind to raise the energy to open your 6th. So clairvoyance is to see. I hear almost everybody on the call, not all of you, but some of you going, I don't see. Guys, when I started, I didn't see at all. Now clairvoyance is the one I use the most, okay? When I started, I did not see at all. Okay, and I have been doing this for the last number of years and I'm alive, okay? So clairvoyance is one, to see. Clairsentience is, everybody has this. Like everyone has all 4, but clairsentience in this group is the most common, okay? Clairsentience is to feel. It's the goosebumps. It's the butterflies in your stomach. It's the like nausea before you go on stage. Anything that's in the physical body is clairsentience, okay? We all have goosebumps, right? We all get them. That's clairsentience. You guys are with me still? Clairsentience is definitely the one that's the most common, that most people can relate to on the planet, okay? Then the 3rd one is clairaudience, which is to actually hear. So people think it's always a voice that you're hearing. like a natural voice. Now, just straight up, guys, I don't have a voice. Okay? You'll hear me when I say I hear, it comes to me in different ways, but it's actual a voice like Divi, like natural comes out, Divi, do this. Now, clairaudience doesn't have to appear that way. Remember I said we have all four. You're like, but Divi, you don't have that. For me, clairaudience shows up as when I get in the car, the song that's on. That song's for me. Or I'm at a coffee shop, the conversation I overhear, that's clairaudience. Does that make sense to you guys? It doesn't have to be the voice in your head. Okay? Like the actual vocalization. And the last one is claircognizance. Claircognizance is thought insertions. And so I personally get all four, but those primary three I get in sessions are claircognizance, clairsentience, and clairvoyance. Claircognizance is a thought insertion. It's like, I don't know where, boom, it comes in. Here's the classic example. You're up for a run, beautiful sunny day, you're on the seawall, not a worry in the world, comes out of nowhere, pay your hydro bill. You're like, oh my God, hydro's getting disconnected tomorrow. How did I, and you weren't thinking about it. You weren't like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It just came out of nowhere. That's claircognizance. Okay, so there's four different ones. Now, one of these is your main one. The reason it's really helpful to know your main one is because then you can start to build the other ones. So when I first started, I only used clairsentience in sessions, which is the feeling, until I got super tired doing it. Like it's really exhausting to just use one. And then I started to wake up the other ones, but it really, I'd get the goosebumps, I'd get the tingles. I'm like, oh, this is it, right? So close your eyes. We're gonna go into like a very mini exercise, and then we're gonna try to figure out what our primary clair is. If you are driving, don't close your eyes. Close your eyes. And take a few deep breaths in and out. Breathe in, breathe out. Belly rises and belly falls. Inhale and exhale. Center into your body right now. If there's any fears that you have about opening up your intuition, think of it like Easter and take all those fears like Easter eggs and put them outside of your house right now. Just leave them outside. Any fear is the only thing that's going to block you from doing this exercise, guys, just so you know. And sometimes the fear is unconscious. So if we don't get anything from this exercise, don't worry. Nothing bad or serious. Take a few breaths. We all have fear around intuition. It's completely normal. Just breathe. There you go. On your next breath, imagine yourself in a beautiful place in nature. It can be a place that you visit frequently or a place that you've never been to. The most important thing about this place is that you feel safe and comfortable. Comfortable and safe. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Inhale and exhale. Notice everything about this place that makes it safe and comfortable. Notice the colors, the temperatures, the sounds. Notice the aromas in your safe and comfortable place. Notice what you are wearing. Notice what you have on your feet. Feel the ground underneath your feet in your safe and comfortable place. As you breathe in and out. As you sit in your safe and comfortable place, Start to notice if there's anything that needs to be added or subtracted as you breathe in and out. Inhale and exhale. Belly rises and belly falls. Next thing you notice in this safe and comfortable place, it's like all of a sudden you've been transported in your safe and comfortable place to a movie theater. There's a TV screen directly in front of you and it's huge, just like you're watching a big fancy movie. Out of the corner of your eye, your favorite snacks from popcorn, chips, pop, water show up, whatever you love. And your favorite movie comes on the screen. As you're watching it, start to notice all of the things that make it your favorite movie. Is it the colors? Is it how it feels as you're watching this movie? Is it the soundtrack, like the music, the way that the actors talk? Or is it the excitement of the plot? What's coming next? What's coming next? What do you love about this movie? And let the movie come into your body. Just, oh, there you go. And breathe. And now imagine that the movie is ending, and all of a sudden, you're transported to a coffee shop with me. And we're sitting in this coffee shop, and we're talking about this movie. This incredible movie that you just watched, your favorite movie. And as we talk about this incredible movie, you tell me your favorite thing. Divvy, my favorite thing was the colors and what the actors wore and their makeup, what it looked like. My favorite thing was how it felt. I cried, I got sad, I got excited. My favorite thing was thinking what's going to happen next. The plot. Or my favorite thing was the soundtrack, the music. And you might have more than one favorite, but what's your biggest favorite? Take about 10 or 20 more breaths. Keeping this safe and comfortable place in your body. And when you're ready, start to bring your awareness to your fingers and your toes, into the physical body that you're in. And start to bring awareness to your breath. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. And if you didn't get what your favorite thing was, we'll be doing a question and answer at the end to help you guys out. Whatever your favorite thing, if you love the feeling, that's me. The feeling, oh my God, I cried through the whole movie, that's me. That's my clairsentience. Okay? Then my next favorite thing is actual the visuals. I'm like, look at those colors. That's my clairvoyance. My other favorite thing is to kind of guess, oh, this is going to happen, or this is going to happen. That's claircognizance. The least thing that I pay attention to is the audio soundtrack. I very rarely download the audio soundtrack from a movie, okay? Except for Frozen, that one I got. But the audio soundtrack, that's clairaudience. One of them is your main. Only you can figure out what your main one is. I'll help you in the questions and answers in a little bit, but your main one is your main clair. It's your main way the divine communicates to you. And the most common that I see on the planet is clairsentience. And as right before I said clairsentience, I got goosebumps. Was their way of saying, yeah, that's their most common. Okay? Now, before I go on, there's just a few more things I took a note before I open up for questions and answers. So that's your primary clair. We're going to answer questions and answers in a minute here in a minute. But the other thing that they want me to say, I take notes before I teach, stuff that the guides want me to say. Let's talk about why you'd want to increase your intuition. It makes for a really great life, guys. It's just so fun. It's fun. Like intuition isn't serious, like, oh, it's fun. Like it's fun. It's fun to tune in. It's fun to check in. Is this for my highest and greatest good rather than thinking about it? I grew up in a thinker family. The pros and the cons. Should we buy this car or not buy this car? Should we move here or not move here? How many of you ever bought your own home or bought a car? There's actually a scientific study that's in the book when you get the book. Scientific studies show that if you buy a car based on number of kilometers it's going to get you and logically and the percent of people happy buying a car from their logic and a home is about the same is 15%. If you buy a car based on your intuition, how it's going to make you feel, your intuitive hit, your percent is 60 to 75%. That's a reason to raise your intuition. I want to be happy. Does that make sense to you guys? Rather than the logic is going to make you 15% of the times happy versus 70. I'd take 70 any day. It's not 100, but I take it. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. So why else do you want to raise your intuition? You want to raise your intuition because most of the times we're up here. We're like, should I do this? Should I not do that? Like I love my clients so much. And sometimes they ask me funny things because they're just up here. Not all of them by any stretch. In fact, the majority of my clients are like, to die for incredible humans. And we waste so much time up here in our heads. We make so much time in our stories. What if your stories didn't need to run your life? Another reason to raise your intuition is because I believe that if it's the divine speaking to us, the divine is guiding us and it tells us, take this path. So most of you know, some of you don't know my story, which is great. So I became a physician when I was 25 years old, a family doc. And I didn't know what being a doctor was. And I swear it was my intuition. I used to tell you it was my dad telling me to be a doctor, but I know it was my intuition now that I think back. It was my intuition telling me to be a physician. And then very quickly, like within 2 or 3 years, I'm like, oh my God, what did I just do the last 10 years of school? Oh my God. Not that I hated it, but I was questioning it. And then that very quickly got me sick. And then that got me into yoga. And then I had the intuitive hit, like it was just like a knowing to open a yoga studio or to take yoga teacher training. And then yoga teacher training led me to yoga studio owning, which I never planned to do. And it just one thing to another. And the day I opened the yoga studio, I thought to myself, I was 32 at the time. Thought to myself, am I really going to do this for the rest of my life? Like teach yoga? Because it's I put about $200,000 into opening it, changing cities, changing careers. And I was like, oh my God, right? Am I crazy? Am I? And it was like a hit. I didn't know it was a hit, but this knowing came into my body. This yoga is not about teaching yoga for the rest of your life. This is going to take you to the next step. I didn't know I had no idea it was going to be this. Not a clue. Zero. But when we follow those, so spirit couldn't take me from being 19 to doing what I do now for my career. Impossible. I was too busy up here. You should have met me when I was 18, 19. I was crazy. I joke, and I say that with love. I was a really busy thinker. So they had to take me into medicine, that took me into getting sick, took me to yoga, took me to this. Does that make sense? But I did it when they told me to do yoga training. I didn't know it was they. When I got the hit, the reason I did yoga training is because it was the first time since I remember that I actually felt really good in my body. So I'm like, sure, I haven't done anything for myself in a long time. Let me go study yoga. What do I got to lose? $10,000, $20,000, whatever. To me, money is like, whatever. And I'm not a multi-millionaire, just so you guys know. I'm just like, that's how I live my life. So I followed that intuitive hit. And I guarantee you guys, each of you, they're showing me, you have each had intuitive hits, but you don't listen. But to be a happy life, we want to co-create. We want to get the impulse and then follow. Get the impulse and then follow. Get the impulse and follow. But most of us do is we get the impulse, we're like, oh, let me go look over here. That looks good. We get the impulse, we're like, oh no, too much work. We get the impulse, then a month later we see it on TV. Somebody else has done the idea, right? We've all had that happen. So for me, Waking Up Intuition is a gift we give ourselves. And then I have the benefit of doing it as service on the planet, which I completely adore as a career. And then I want to say one or two other things before I take questions and answers. I'm going to ask this question, Elsa. You asked this question to me by email, but I'll answer in the Q&A as well. She asked a great question. She said, what's the difference between impulse and intuition? And I looked up impulse, just so you know. Impulse from Wikipedia is a strong, sudden, and unreflective urge or desire to act. It's just an urge to act, right, Elsa? Now, the question is, where is that coming from? Is it coming from your mind or your intuition? There's a difference. Now, you get that, right? And so until you figure that out, are you just following these urges? But you have to figure out where are they coming from. So the reason to wake up your intuition is to know where it's coming from. Is it coming from my mind or is it coming from my intuition? So in a second, I'll take Q&A, but thank you guys so much. I'm going to hit stop record. Give me 1 second.